We are in Torah Yud Chet, Torah 18 in Likutey Moharan, up to part 7. And this Torah is called Kartalita, the treasure chest. And Rabbi Nachman explained to us this far. The story that the Gemara brings to us. The Gemara tells us the story about how they saw this, they were traveling at sea. And as they were traveling at sea, they found this treasure chest. This treasure chest at the bottom of the sea that was that had these gems in the chest itself. Were these gems in the actual chest surrounding on the ornaments on the outside of the treasure chest. They were set into the actual chest, these gems. And as they saw the chest, they wanted to retrieve it from the sea. Not them, but someone else that had seen it wanted to retrieve it, and they sent a diver to retrieve it. This story was recounted in the Gemara by Rabbi Yonatan Mishtai, and the Gemara Baba Batra, Ayin Dalid. And so they sent this diver, not Rabbi Yonatan, not him. He was on the ship that was seeing this story, and he's telling over what he saw, relating what he saw. They sent a diver to retrieve this treasure chest, and the treasure chest was surrounded by fish that were called birsha, and these were dangerous fish. And as the diver tried to retrieve the chest, they started cutting into his flesh, into his thigh, and they tried to sever his thigh from his body. And so he opened up a flask of vinegar at the fish, and the fish dispersed. And then he continued trying to get this treasure chest, but then there was a heavenly voice, a bat kol, that came out and exclaimed, "What do you have with the treasure chest? With this treasure chest that belongs to the wife of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, and the wife of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa is going to stores the Techeilet wool for the tzitzit of the tzaddikim in the world to come." And that's the story. That's the story that this Torah is based on. Rabbi Nachman so far explained to us that this Torah is really, the whole Torah is about the end of the story. It's all about the world to come. This story is kind of like the formula of how to get to the world to come. And the point being that the world to come is something so special, so unique, so significant, that people must be worthy on some level. They must be worthy of that world to come. They must be worthy as well of the leadership and the guidance that will get them to the experience of the world to come. The experience of the world to come is the aspect of Shabbat. It's the aspect of the Mashiach. It's the aspect of ultimate peace, infinite peace, the peace that can only be experienced by experiencing Hashem directly. Okay, this is called Menuchat Shabbat. Menuchat Shabbat, the rest. The simple translation of Menuchat Shabbat is the rest of Shabbat. But the deeper meaning of it is the experience of peace, and the inner peace that we experience on Shabbat. Where does that experience of inner peace come from? What does it mean, that peace of Shabbat? We know that we call Shabbat Shalom. A lot of people today, even especially in Israel, we greet each other on Shabbat Shalom. And this is a minhag of Gittin for thousands of years. In the Zohar says that the aspect of Shalom is Shabbat. We know there's a halacha that you cannot say Hashem's name in the bathroom. And you can say any other description of Hashem. Hashem is compassionate, so you can say the word Rachum, the compassionate. You can say that in the bathroom. You can say Gibor. Hashem, one of the characteristics of Hashem is He is the ultimate, most powerful. You say that in the bathroom. You can say Nora, awesome. He is Nora. He's full of awe. Okay, he causes others to feel awe out of his greatness. You can say that in the bathroom. You can say all these other descriptions of Hashem in the bathroom, but you cannot say shalom, because shalom is the name. It's a direct experience of Hashem. It's a direct experience of Hashem. And where there is Hashem, there is shalom. And whereas there is real shalom, okay, sometimes there is the illusion of shalom. We're not speaking about that. But when there is a real experience of shalom, then there is holiness there. There is a revelation of Shekhinah in that place. And so that's the revelation, that's the aspect of Olam Haba. That's the aspect of the world to come. Vegar ze'ev im kevez v'namer im gedi, I believe is the pasuk. That the animals even throughout the world will, even the animals that usually one is a predator and one is usually eating the other one, but in the world to come, there will be such a peace experience in the world that there will be peace in all the elements and all of the parts of the world. Even the animal kingdom will be at peace with each other. And this is the complete opposite of what there was in the generation of the Mabul. In the generation of the Mabul, we know that they corrupted the world through their actions to such a degree that even the animals were having relationships with interspecies, with other species. And the teva of Noach, we spoke about in the previous shir, the teva of Noach is the Shabbat. It's the Malchut. It's the purpose of everything. It's to get us to that point. And to not just to get us to that point, not just to be protected by that point, by that aspect, but to express that and to increase the revelation of that and to spread that energy throughout the whole world. Because as we said, in the time of the world to come, when that's the state of the universe, the world to come, then that will be experienced throughout every particle in the universe, that ultimate peace. And that's why, and that's the aspect of Noach. Rashi explains, Noach, the name Noach, ze yaniach lanu. Rashi explains that it's not the lashon, it's not the word Noach, doesn't come from nechama, even though it sounds like it when in the pasuk ze nachamenu mimaasenu, that he will console us. That's the simple understanding. Maybe some people translate it that way, but Rashi clearly explains that that's not what Noach is. That's not what Noach means. Noach, the name Noach, at the end of Parshat Bereshit, he explains this. He says it's the Yaniach Lanu. He will cause us rest from. Okay, what is this rest? And so the simple shitchi, the simple understanding of this rest, the rest that Noach brings, and the rest of the Shabbat, and the peace that we attribute to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is a lack of work. Okay, but on a deeper level, the meaning of the rest of Shabbat and the peace of Hashem and the rest that Noach brought to the world is the aspect of Shekhinah, is experiencing the divine, experiencing Hashem. Why is that? And the Baal Shem Tov explains it beautifully when he says that everyone in the world, every creature, everything within creation has boundaries to it, has boundaries of space and time. Anything that is created is still on some level limited by the boundaries of space and time. Yes, there are worlds in the spiritual realm that we know according to Kabbalah there are dimensions that are beyond space and time, but to the extent that it was created at a certain point, meaning that it didn't always exist in that state, so it's limited on some level within the confines of space and time, or at least time. And so the only existence that is absolutely beyond space and time is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, that's the only absolute existence that doesn't have a specific place. Hashem is never in a specific place because all place is within Hashem. And that's the Gemara teaches us, He's the space of place, and all place is within him, saturated within him, saturated by him, and within Hashem's infinite space, infinite presence. And so when you think about work and movement is only a concept that applies to a limited creation, to anything that is created. So it moves from one place to the other. As great and as big as it is, you're able to speak about it in these terms. And you can speak about it in the terms of working something, moving something from one place to the other. But as much as you recognize that Hashem is the only existence and everything that is happening automatically, naturally within Hashem, without any work, without any movement. Hashem is the infinite stillness as well. That's another way of seeing it. The infinite stillness is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so when a person gets into a state of Yishuv Da'at, of settling their mind and going into stillness and silence and inner silence, so you are the closest to that divine aspect within you. And that's what a lot of forms of meditation are geared towards, getting us to that point. And when we dive into Hashem, that's what our focus is, getting to that point and connecting to Hashem from that point, not staying there. It's connecting to Hashem from that point, because that point is very, very conducive to that connection with Hashem, to experiencing Hashem. And so that's what the Baal Shem Tov says is the whole idea of Menuchat Shabbat. The rest of Shabbat, it just means that the Shabbat is the most conducive. It has a special energy in it to be able to experience that presence of Hashem, which is Menucha, ultimate, infinite Menucha. And that's the idea of peace, the Shalom, being a direct experience of Hashem. And that's the idea of Noach. That's the aspect of Noach, and that's brought to the world through the Tzaddik. Noach ish Tzaddik, the Torah says. Tamim haya b'dorota, right? So he was the Tzaddik of the generation. The Zohar says this. The Zohar says this is the aspect of Shabbat. This is the aspect of Noach. And this is also why it says Ele Toledot Noach. Ele is 36, the numerical value, the gematria of 36, which is 6 times 6. And Kabbalistically, we know that the sphera that represents the tzaddik is the 6th sphera from Chesed and down, and it's the sphera of Yesod. And so the completion of that in all its facets, the complete expression of that in all its facets is 6 times 6, which is 36. And so that's another explanation on all the hints in the Torah to that Noach is this aspect of the tzaddik. And the tzaddik is the one that guides the world to the experience of Shabbat, to the experience of Shalom, to the experience of the world to come. And that's what this whole Torah is about. And that, today we're going to see that that's the aspect of Techeilet. We spoke about it a little bit yesterday, but Rabbi Nachman is going to explain it nicer and a little bit more, a different side to it today. The aspect of Techeilet and Tzitzit is this world to come, that everything is focused to that. And the tzaddik connects us to that. This is the whole idea about the Zohar saying that the garment, when Shem found when Ham found Noach, right, in an embarrassing way in his tent, and he came and he told his brothers, and they went and they covered him with a garment. The Zohar says that garment was a tzitzit. The garment was a tzitzit, and the garment that they covered Noach is the tzitzit, because the tzitzit covers up all of the embarrassments of a person, all of the sins of the person is specifically, Rabbi Nachman explains, specifically referring to the sins of immoral sexuality, of Gama Brit, which is exactly what Ham, that was his sin, that was his klipa, his impurity, the Ham, the son of Noach, and that's why he was Aruch Kinan. That's why he was cursed, because that's what brings all curses, is that aspect. And the aspect that covers up, dissolves that embarrassment, that shame, all the experience of shame and guilt in the world comes from that. And the aspect that dissolves it, that holiness that dissolves it and heals the heart from all of that guilt and all that shame, is the tzitzit. And The tachlit of the tzitzit is a Techeilet, no pun intended, right? The tachlit is a Techeilet. And the whole point of the purpose of the tzitzit is the Techeilet. And so that's what we're going to speak about more about today. But in the story, Rabbi Nachman taught us how to receive the light of, how to receive that guidance from the Noach, from the Moshe, from David HaMelech, from Mashiach of the generation, how to receive that guidance that he's going to connect us to the light of the Shabbat, to the light of the world to come. And Rabbi Nachman taught us that by sweetening anger energy with compassion, the compassion itself is the crown of leadership, and the anger energy is the disconnected, the leadership that has fallen into exile. That's what anger energy represents. When the leadership of the guidance of Hashem is concealed, so that's the experience. That means that we are experiencing the anger of Hashem in the world because of idol worship, because of lack of belief and trust in Hashem, and the compassion itself, okay, is an experience of the he'arat panim. It's an experience of that clear guidance from Hashem, experiencing Hashem with us, like the mother feeling experiencing a child experiencing the closeness of his mother, holding him and making sure everything is fine. That empathy and that compassion that his mother has for him. And so when we experiencing that is the crown of Hashem's guidance, guiding us and leading us. And those holy souls, the Moshe of this generation, the Mashiach of the generation, we want them to be adorned with that crown of compassion, so that they will guide us and they will lead us to that experience of Shabbat, okay? So that they will guide us to the fulfillment of that final purpose, which is the purpose of everything, the purpose of all purposes, the tachlit of all tachlit, as Rabbi Nachman said. And so we want to sweeten the anger energy with compassion energy. And when we sweeten it in our own personal experience with that compassion energy, so that malchut, that leadership that has been disconnected throughout the world into a state of concealment, where the righteous, holy, humble souls who are the most worthy to lead us and guide us to experience that world to come, to experience that Shabbat, they are fleeing positions of authority and leadership, and they may be using the excuse that they're unworthy of it, when really it's generation that is unworthy of their leadership. But when in our personal inner world we sweeten that anger energy with compassion, so we are compelling those holy, humble souls, those Mashiach souls, to receive, to be adorned with that crown of compassion, that crown of leadership, and to guide us and to lead us with Emunah. As we said, one of the main characteristics of these holy, humble souls is their exclusive Emunah, their Emunah that is exclusively in Hashem, nothing else. They don't believe in anyone and anything else. There's no other energy. They have dissolved the illusion of the ego. They have dissolved the illusion of the separateness, and they have dissolved the illusion of any other force in the universe, right? So they experience Enod Milvadim. And then Rabbi Nachman went into the point of how sometimes there are the diver, which is the one that is inappropriate or unworthy of leadership, and he tries to grab the crown of leadership, and he's unworthy of it because he doesn't have that right, that complete emunah, that complete belief and trust in Hashem. And the protection, there's the Emunah itself protects that crown of leadership, that anyone is unworthy of it. If he tries to get close, it severs that person's relationship with wisdom. That person will be disconnected from any wisdom, and the only power that the crown of leadership has to lead others is only as much as it is rooted in that wisdom. And so if that person is disconnected from the wisdom, he cannot lead others. And even if he tries to, that leadership will be short-lived. It will be temporary. It will just be on the outside. Just maybe they can force people to pay taxes and so, but they will not have real control, real power, real leadership. They will not be able to influence the souls of people. And that's good. That's a protection, because we don't want people to be influenced and to be drawn, that their soul should be drawn after someone that is unworthy and someone that has the wrong intentions and someone that is corrupt. We don't want that. And so we spoke about also the letters of the Torah that make up all of reality. They are the building blocks of reality. And the completion of these letters is the Emunah. And so the letters themselves is the Malchut. Okay, that's the Malchut that we're speaking about. And the completion, the perfection of the Malchut, the completion and the perfection of the leadership, what completes it and brings it to a state of perfection is the Emunah. And that's what we're saying over and over again. It's the Emunah. That's kind of like the soul of the Malchut. And the Emunah, and the Emunah is this aspect of the world to come. It's the aspect of the Shabbat. And so when we spoke about when the tzaddikim, those holy, humble souls, because they have the power to over reality, to control reality, to manipulate reality, as we spoke about, the power to be posek, to make a psak, to say halacha, to say a law in the Torah, and this is connected specifically to the oral part, the oral law, the Torah Shebaal Peh. Then with that ability, with that power, they control reality. And so because they control reality, that means that the letters of the Torah, which are the building blocks of reality, are in their hands. And because of that, the Emunah is in their hands. And because of that, that means that the world to come is in their hands. The experience of Shabbat is in their hands. And that's why, as Rabbi Nachman said at the beginning of this Torah, to the extent that we have a part in these souls, and to the extent that we have within us a big part of these souls, of these holy, humble souls, these Mashiach souls, that's the extent that we can experience today the Shabbat. And this experience can expand and increase. Okay, the more you connect yourself to these souls, and the more you learn their Torah, and you speak their Torah, and you follow the Torah, and you follow their guidance, and you honor them, you respect them, you crown them with a crown of authority by accepting them as your leader, right? To be ateret anavim. There's a pasuk like that. To be the crown to those that are humble. Rabbi Nachman brought this at the beginning of the Torah, right? The more that you do that, the more that you will be able to experience the Shabbat, the Shalom, the Menuchat Shabbat, the Olam Haba, Sha'ashua Olam Haba, already now and already here. And so let's read more into the Techeilet. We're up to Ot Zayin. Techeilet nikra Techeilet. And the Techeilet, the purpose, the final purpose is called Techeilet. So it sounds like the same word, okay? Because it is, according in the deeper meaning of it, the Kabbalistic meaning of it is that it's the same aspect. And so Rabbi Nachman is going to try to make this close to our understanding, to help us feel it. He's going to bring it closer to our heart, the understanding of what's the connection between the color blue, the color of Techeilet, with the purpose, with the Techeilet. And so that's what he's explained to us here. He says that the color blue is the mixture of blue and white, of black and white, meaning that in between black, the point that combines blackness and whiteness, is the point of blue, the color blue. Okay? וכשנתחבר שחור ולבן, כמו הכתב שהוא בחינת שחור על גבי לבן, בוודאי תחתיות האות הדבוק וקרוב והנייר שהוא לבן, במקום הדיבוק והקירוב, שם הם מעורבים שחור עם לבן, בבחינת חלת. And so the point where, when you write the letters in the Torah, and the letters are black and the parchment is white. And so because the place of combining black and white together is the color blue, so says Rabbi Nachman, for sure, in that point where the blackness of the letter is stuck within, it's set into the whiteness of the parchment, there is a blue at that point. Okay, on that surface. ותחתיות האות הוא הסוף והתכלית. Okay, and the bottom, the undersurface of the letter, is the end and the goal. Okay, כי כשהסופר כותב ומעמיד הקנה והעט עם הדיו על הנייר, בוודאי הדיו רחוק מהנייר מעט, עד שהסופר מעמיק העט עם הדיו בתוך עומק הנייר, ואז נדבק שחרות הדיו בעומק בקירוב גדול. At the beginning, when the sofer just touches the parchment with his pen, with his quill, and the ink starts falling from the quill onto the parchment, start in the form that he's writing it. So at the beginning, it's very lightly attached, but then he sets the quill down into the parchment. He presses it in. When you write, it's the same thing, right? You don't write lightly because then it just doesn't have a form. It doesn't stay. You set it in and you press down the quill into the parchment. And that's what completes it and gives it a form. That's how he makes it into a form. And he draws it and makes the aleph to look like an aleph and the bet to look like a bet. It's when he presses down with the quill into the parchment. And so that pressing down is the ink that is set and stuck into the parchment. Okay, it's pressed into it. If you were to scratch off the letter, you would see an imprint of the letter into the parchment. And so at that point where it's pressed into the parchment, there is a combining of the black and the white, and that's the color of blue. And that's the Techeilet, that's the Techeilet, that's the purpose of the letter. That's what completes the letter, is that pressing of the quill into the parchment, pressing the letters and forming it. That's the purpose of it, the completion of it. בתחתיות האות הוא הסוף והתכלית, כשהסופר כותב ומעמיד הקנה והעט עם הדיו עם הנייר, בוודאי הדיו רחוק מהנייר מעט, עד שהסופר מעמיק העט עם הדיו בתוך עומק הנייר, ואז נדבק שחרות הדיו בעומק בקירוב גדול. And then the ink's blackness becomes very deeply and closely attached to the fibers of the parchment. ונמצא שהקירוב הוא סוף ותכלית. And so we can conclude from here that the coming close of the quill into the parchment, that pressing into the parchment is the Techeilet. That's the Techeilet aspect. That's the completion, the fulfillment of the purpose of that letter. You would say, in other words, you would say that's the actualizing of, because we said the letters are the building blocks of reality. So the manifestation of that aspect into reality is the pressing down of the quill into the parchment. Okay? נמצא שהקירוב הוא סוף ותכלית, ובמקום הקירוב שם הנייר והדיו הם מעורבים מבחינת תכלת כנ"ל, כי כן הדבר שתכלית הוא סוף המעשה. הוא במחשבה תחילה, בקרוב להמחשבה כנזכר לאל. And so at that point where it's pressed in, there is blue. And this represents the purpose for which Hashem creates something. The purpose for why something is built, why something is created. We also have the metaphor Rabbi Nachman gave us of the house. That originally, right, when the sofer wants to write the letter Aleph, he has a letter Aleph in his head, in his imagination, he's visualizing the letter Aleph. And that's the end result. And in order to get to that end result, the point that is closest to that is the pressing in of the quill into the parchment. That's when it's completed. And you see the Aleph on the parchment the way the scribe has in his mind, the way he's seeing it. And so Rabbi Nachman in brackets, in parentheses here, he explains it a little bit more. Rabbi Natan, he explains it a little bit more. נראה לעניות דעתי לפרש כי סוף המעשה הוא בחינת שחרות. ותחילת המחשבה הוא בחינת לובן העליון כידוע. And so with this explanation, we'll be able to understand the Kabbalistic meaning behind this whole metaphor that Rabbi Nachman gives us here. Okay, and so he says that the aspect of shacharut, blackness, is the aspect of Techeilet, it's the aspect of the purpose. Okay, what does it mean, the purpose? Throughout this whole Torah, we've been explaining that the purpose, the final purpose, is the aspect of Malchut. Kabbalistically, the color, all of the sefirot have different colors. And the color that represents the Malchut is the color of black, Shacharut. And so that's what he is saying here. He's saying the Shacharut, the blackness, is the Sof Maaseh, it's the end of action. Malchut is also action. it's the final purpose, it's the action. And so the end of action, Kabbalistically, is the blackness. Okay, and that's the Malchut. The color of Malchut is blackness. And also, he says, and the beginning of thought, and the first intention, the initial intention, what we call Keter, as we called it throughout this Torah, that the color in the Sfirot for Keter is white. In the Zohar, it's called Lovin Ha'elyon. In the Sfirot, it's called the upper whiteness, or the transcendent whiteness. There's a whole explanation on what's the connection between that and Lavan. The Eitz Chaim of the Arizal explains. But the point is that everything has a potential for good and a potential for the opposite of good, right? But the Keter is called in Kabbalah Loven Ha'elyon, the transcendent whiteness. Okay, it's the highest upper whiteness. It's absolutely the purest whiteness that there is. And all the colors in between that is just all the different stages between that transcendent whiteness and the absolute blackness. And so that's what we have here. And that's why you can understand based on that the parchment, the white of the Torah from this perspective is a higher aspect than the black of it. Although the white of it is worth nothing without the black of it. Okay, and so you can have all the light in the world, all the spiritual light in the world, but if it's not set into action, if it's not actualized like we have in the Torah, actually making tefillin and putting on your tefillin and keeping kosher and keeping the mitzvot of the Torah, then what is it worth? It's like a white parchment. It doesn't have the writing in the Torah. It's nothing. You can do anything with it, with a white empty parchment. You can do anything with it. And so also, this is also the meaning of how when the Torah was given to Bnei Israel, it says that it was white fire upon black fire. And so that's really representing, there's a whole shir that I can give just on that. But the point is that the white fire on the black fire is the way it is in Shamayim. Meaning that really you should recognize that when you're looking at the Sefer Torah, that the source of it, there is the white fire upon the black fire. But when it's given to us and it travels throughout all these dimensions until it's manifested in the physical realities, so the way we receive it and the way we actualize it, it becomes that white is actualized by us, and the actualizing of it, of that intention, is the blackness of it. And that which was black over there is for us transcendent. And so there's a whole deeper meaning behind that. But in our context here, for our purpose, let's stick to the point here. The point is that the shachrut, the blackness, represents the malchut. It's the final action, and the whiteness represents the initial intention. Okay? Nimsa shesof ha'ma'aseh shehu ha'tachlit shehu b'machshava tchila v'karov lehamachshava hu b'chinat Techeilet shehu chibur shachor v'lavan b'havin. And therefore, if you would visualize the parchment, the whiteness of the parchment as the initial intention, as the place of the beginning of intention, okay, and in that place of the beginning of intention, it's set within that initial intention, in that highest state of consciousnness that we call Keter, that highest state of consciousness that we call the initial intention, okay, the beginning of all. There's a vision, and so that vision, the form that is set within that state of consciousness, is the bottom of the letter, which is set into the parchment, right? Because if we're seeing the parchment as that state of consciousness, that pure state of consciousness, the beginning of everything, that is unaffected by anything in the physical world, it's beyond everything. It's that state of complete pure stillness and that state of infinite potential. Okay, that's a nice way of saying it. the state of infinite potential. And in that state, there is a vision that forms, okay? And that vision is the intention of what I would like to set into motion, to have manifest. And so in that parchment is formed, pressed within it, impressed within it, the form of the letter. And we said that at that point where it's impressed within the parchment, the black and the white, you have the color of Techeilet, you have the color of blue. And so what we're saying here is that initial intention within the Keter, the form that is impressed in that state, in the initial intention of what will be, what I am desiring to manifest, that form is in the color of Techeilet. It's the aspect of Techeilet. It's the blue. It's the absolute black, but the absolute black as it is in its state that it appears when it's in the absolute white. Okay, and that is the color of Techeilet that we're saying. And so that's the secret of the Techeilet of the Tzitzit. The secret of the Techeilet of the Tzitzit is that it is, as we know from the Gemara says that Techeilet domeh layam, v'yam domeh l'rakia, v'rakia domeh l'kisei hakavod. Right? The Techeilet, it reminds us of the sea, which reminds us of the sky, or the firmament, the rakia, the heavens, which reminds us of the kisei hakavod. And the point is that the tzitzit is to connect us from this physical world. It's to remind us and to keep our attention focused between asking ourselves, how are my actions in this physical manifestation of reality, how are they aligned with or disaligned with the Techeilet, the purpose that Hashem had in that initial intention? Because that initial intention, we said, was the color blue. Okay, it was the absolute black within that space of absolute white. When it's impressed in that space, it is the color blue. And so we are being reminded through the tzitzit, through the Techeilet of the tzitzit, to connect ourselves to that and ask ourselves, am I living a reality that is aligned with that Techeilet, that final purpose, or not? And that's why it's connected to the eyes. Okay, where is your focus? It's connected to do not stray after your eyes and after your heart. That's the musar. That's the lesson behind the Techeilet of the tzitzit. It's stay focused on the goal. Stay focused and aligned with that intention that Hashem, that vision that Hashem has for you, right? That best version of you, that vision that Hashem has for the world. Stay in alignment with that. Stay focused on that. That's the kisei hakavod. And that's the place where your soul came from, right? The souls, the neshamot, are drawn from the kisei hakavod. And that means that the source, your source, is that. That means that that's your purpose. Your purpose is to manifest that vision in this reality that you are living, in this physical world. Manifest it. Look, like the Medrash says, when they saw Yaakov, the angels saw Yaakov in the dream, and they looked at Yaakov, and then they looked at the source of Yaakov's neshama in the high heavens that was etched in the kisei hakavod, and they looked back down at Yaakov in this world, and they looked back up at the form of Yaakov etched in the kisei hakavod in the heavenly throne, and they saw there was no difference between them. What does that mean? That means that the way he was living his life, the form of Yaakov in this physical reality, was in perfect alignment. It was a perfect copy, a perfect manifesting of that heavenly form of Yaakov, of the source of his neshama. And that's what the tzitzit is. That's what it helps us achieve. That's what it helps us accomplish. It's to connect us to that Techeilet. Again, so that's here. We're up to part 8, and we'll see that B'ezrat Hashem in the next year.
So it's like almost the